All right, here we are.
Yes,
Bok
indeed. So,
Islands.
welcome everybody to the official Rise of the Rajas release day live stream. I am joined today by Bert, aka Cysion, who is the lead designer of the expansions for the Age of Empires 2 HD Edition. Rise of the Rajas just came out now, so literally as of me saying this, it is now available to be purchased on Steam as of December 19th, 21 GMT. It adds 4 new civilizations and a bunch of other new features that we will be covering in this particular show match. The replay today is going to be a 2v2 that I had the pleasure of playing with some of the other FE staff, actually. So it's going to be a 2v2. I will be teaming up with, let's see, I'm teaming up with Tom. So it's going to be the Khmer and the Burmese versus Cheese on Toast will be playing as the Malay, and then we have Mars playing as the Vietnamese.
All right, I think while you start the replay, I think I can quickly introduce them because, as you correctly noticed, all of them are members of Forgotten Empires. Cheese on Toast is one of our QA testers. Mars is as well. And then we have the Very Fish, which might be more known as the Prophet in the community. He's the map maker, so he made this map. And then we have the last guy in there. Oh, that's Res. We all know Res. I'm talking to you right now. All right.
Indeed, indeed. And it is an absolute pleasure to be here and to be a part of this. I will be talking about my involvement at FE more in a later announcement, which will be made sometime in January. But in the meantime, right now, of course, the focus is on the launch of this new expansion. It's been a while since we've had one, actually. It's been a little over a year, I believe, right?
Yes, almost. I think 1 year, 1 month, and 10 days to be perfectly exactly on the date. But it's starting to become a tradition. I'm having a little flashback to last year's release stream. I remember at the very end of the stream, people asked, "Are you going to do more expansions for Age of Empires 2?" And at that point, I said, the game has a lot of civilizations at this point. I don't think we're gonna see more. And well, it's 1 year later, and here we are again. So I'm not gonna do any bold predictions this time around. I'm just gonna see what happens in the future.
And of course, personally, I'm always happy to see my favorite game of all time and my favorite strategy game franchise getting the support that it oh so deserves. To think that this game has actually been out now for, over 17 years now, and we recently got like our first Microsoft-sponsored tournament actually a couple of days ago, and I don't believe we've had one since 2002 either, so I see nothing but bright things in the future for Age of Empires 2. Now, really briefly, I am going to go over some of the things in the expansion. So like I said, we have 4 new civilizations: the Burmese, the Khmer, the Malay, and the Vietnamese. I have Civ overview videos on those on my channel, and then we have 4 new fully voice-acted campaigns, 2 new generic units, the Battle Elephant and Imperial Skirmisher. We'll be showcasing all of these during this show match. And then we also have a new terrain type that you can actually build on, but both land units and ships can pass through. That's called Mangrove Shallows. And then, of course, we have 5 new random maps, 5 new special maps, 5 new real-world maps, 13 new terrains, more scenario editor objects, and an improved AI.
You memorized that quite well, I have to say.
Thank you.
That is indeed the full rundown of all the content that's coming with the expansion. And in case people want to try it out, it's available now. It's out now. It should have been launched. It's probably downloading for you, so go check it out. Or, if you want, stick around and we will show you a match on Bok Islands.
Indeed. Now, I suppose that before we talk too much about the actual civs and whatnot themselves, while we're in the relaxing early game, enjoying all the beautiful new terrain and art assets, I'm going to start by asking a couple of questions about the DLC. So I think the first question in most people's minds, and then after I go through the questions, then we will take some from chat, of course. So the first question is, why the focus on Southeast Asia?
Very good question. It's since the game was released and since Ensemble Studios back in the early 2000s decided that they would make expansions, the Khmer were actually a much requested civilization. Um, and as we are going around the world making expansions, we just went to Africa. We were like, okay, what's the other big region that's missing? And that is Southeast Asia. Of course, we have not just the Khmer, we have other civilizations in the region. And the good thing about the regional approach is that you can really go all out on everything. Like, it's not just the civilization, it's the architecture, it's the terrains, it's everything. And by sticking to one big region, and I have to say Southeast Asia is a very rich region, like culturally, historically, naturally. That just was an incredibly good topic for a new expansion. I have to say though, it was quite difficult in a way to jump into that history because it's a very unknown history for the Western audience. Let's put it like that. Like, we all know Joan of Arc, we all know William Wallace and whatever Mel Gibson did to him in that movie, but it it is, if you think like, oh, the Khmer, yeah, they were big, but what did they do? Who was their leader here in Europe and in the USA? It's a very unknown region, and I'm actually quite happy that we jumped into it and figured out that it was actually a very rich history.
Oh yeah, and I think that Southeast Asia was just a very highly requested thing for Age of Empires too. And the new civs all just
Absolutely.
have a wonderful identity. This entire DLC does, especially with the Mangrove Shallows. It just feels like a fresh take on the franchise. Which brings me, of course, to my next question: what is the design process like behind designing a civilization?
Ooh, that's we actually had a very long discussion about that within the team not that long ago, and we were talking about like, okay, how do you make civilization? And for me, it essentially boils down to, can you name like one very interesting thing about a civilization, just one thing, and that's usually good enough to get us started. So, for example, the Franks, just to take an example from the old games, they have Joan of Arc. Uh, Great, that's a great story. It's a great famous storyline. That's enough for me to build a civ around that. Other examples of like what could be an interesting idea, like to start with, is, for example, the Khmer. They had the ballista elephants. That's something they actually deployed in their warfare. So that was, okay, let's go for the Khmer. They have awesome unique unit, so we have to use that in some way or another. And then you kind of build your civilization around those few ideas you have, and then you dive into the history books and then look how you can fill up the rest.
Yeah, the Khmer are one of my favorites of the new civilization. I think the Ballista Elephant is a really iconic unit, and we also have, of course, the long-awaited upgrade to the Elite Skirmisher, the Imperial Skirmisher for the Vietnamese. I think it's very interesting that you point out that when you're designing these civilizations, you're looking for, that one iconic thing about them, and that was something I had a lot of pleasure going through when I was looking through all the new civilizations. They do really all have those defining characteristics. Now, speaking of new civilizations, every time we design a new set of civs, of course, it must come with a new architecture set. Could you tell us a little bit more about the new architecture set?
So the new architecture set was mainly made by Jorgito, who used to be a very big modder in the community, but by now he has a lot of help from the rest of the art team. So if you're listening now, I would like to thank the whole art team for your incredible work. We're still in the dark age in the civilization, so sorry, in the recorded game, so you can't see it yet.
We're almost there. Cheese on Toast
We're
has
almost
just
there.
advanced to the feudal age, so we're good.
We're good. Okay, great. So we will see it very soon on stream. So the very challenging thing about making the new architecture set is that we kind of want to make one set for the whole region. Now, all those four civilizations have some common themes in their architecture, but there is not one big, like, there is no reference. If you look up Khmer University, you don't get an image. You have to make up a style yourself almost, and that's kind of what we had to do here as well. Like we take elements from certain buildings and from certain building styles, architectural styles, and we mash them together into one architecture set that didn't necessarily exist, but it's still quintessentially Southeast Asian.
So one interesting thing I wanted to note here is that you can see me again. We didn't really rehearse this too much, but for this particular show match, I wanted to showcase one of the Conquerors bonuses: the no buildings required to advance to the next stage or unlock other buildings. This is a bonus that I think is extremely creative and well designed, as it carries a lot of meaningful drawbacks but a lot of strength, and it's one that I notoriously play very badly with. Like, I actually did not need to build this mill here to build the farms. It's just something I'll never remember. But one thing I did remember is I did not need to build that blacksmith and market to advance the castle age. So you can see me here being able to do that immediately, which I'm of course going to do in honor of Doubt, a fast castle age into Scorpions, because the Khmer have that Scorpions +1 range bonus, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. And of course you guys can see all of the new architecture and assets. One of the things that I really like about the DLCs is that I find it incredible that the Forgotten Empires team is actually able to keep a cohesive art style that actually fits with Age of Empires 2. Considering that it's so old and all the units have very particular look to them, the fact that things just fit in and look so nice is crazy to me.
Yeah, indeed, and it's always a very, very long chore to make sure that the architecture set is recognizable as an Age of Empires 2 architecture set. It's very, very easy to make mistakes there. Like if the I don't know, the houses are a little bit smaller or a little less square, it's immediately no longer recognizable as a house, and those are issues we had plenty of times, sadly. But yeah, after what is it, 3 expansions that we've made now, we kind of got the hang of it, and we have to do a little less iterations to make sure that in the end the buildings are quintessentially Age of Empires 2. And actually, one more thing that I wanted to mention on the architecture sets. Sorry to come back on that. So we have 4 civilizations, and they were all in that region, but they were not all like, this is not their historical set, and that's especially true for the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese are more of a Chinese civilization, actually, and we had a lot of Vietnamese fans actually mailing us asking, why don't the Vietnamese get the Chinese set? Because that would fit better. The reason for that is kind of how we designed the Vietnamese. So we kind of never make very specific civs. We always make civs a bit bigger and cover more. Like, for example, the Celts. Like, they not just cover the Scots, but pretty much all Celtic tribes. And with the Vietnamese, we also included the Champa kingdom, and the Champa was very, very Southeast Asian architecture, much more similar and closer to the Khmer. So something for the history buffs here. If you're wondering why they have that architecture, that's because we took the Champa and the Vietnamese, which were actually enemies at the time, and pulled them together into one civ.
And boy, does it look nice. Now, of course, if you guys are looking for more information on the Rise of the Rajas DLC, I definitely encourage you guys to head on over to ForgottenEmpires.net, where you can find all the information that you need on the new civilizations. And if you follow Forgotten Empires on Facebook and Twitter, you will also get updates on whenever they're streaming next or how development is going. We are, of course, always looking for you guys' feedback, and we hope that you enjoy the DLC as much as we do. Now, moving on to the next question. Of course, it wouldn't be an expansion if we didn't get some new campaigns. So can you tell us a little bit more about the new campaigns?
So we did one campaign per new civilization. We have tried to make, to pick what is a famous story for the regions and for the civilizations at hand, and not just from our perspective, but also from the people's perspective. For example, for the Vietnamese, we took the story of Le Loi. Vietnam historically had quite a troubled history. Like, they were constantly being attacked, constantly being raided by the Chinese, by the Mongols even, and despite all those constant attacks, like, they were ruled every 100 years. by the Chinese. They were constantly under attack, pretty much, and still they managed to beat back. And nowadays we have the country of Vietnam. So in the end, I would say they won. So we took that one of those stories where Leloy is fighting back against the Chinese. And then we have the same for other civs. And actually, if you look at the cover art, I think all of the cover art is based on a hero that is represented in the campaigns.
Now, one other quick thing that I also wanted to talk about, that's a topical thing, is we see here that Cheese on Toast is playing as the Malay, and they have some of my favorite bonuses in the entire game. They're very creative, and they encourage an alternate playstyle. So, if you're wondering exactly why he has so many fish traps, it's actually because his fish traps have infinite food as part of one of the Malay's bonuses. Of course, some of their other iconic bonuses are they advance the ages twice as fast, but it's really this fish trap thing that we see Cheese on Toast taking advantage of here. You can actually save a remarkable amount of wood over the course of the game, so it's really cool to see how basically old units and strategies can be flipped on their heads and looked at in a new way with the DLC, so I always enjoy that. We see he's actually going to send some Karambit warriors over here to rush me a bit, and I think that this is the perfect segue into the question that we all want to see answered. Can you tell us a little bit more about the new civilizations in general? What are they like?
Ooh, that's for the players to find out. The DLC is out now. We didn't expect the stream to be at the same time of the release. We thought it was going to be a little bit faster, but yeah, let's look into them. We tried to well, let's start with one. Let's start with the Malay because we're watching the Karambit at the moment. So the Malay are historically a very naval civilization. They set up a massive empire over the whole Malay archipelago, and we kind of wanted to reflect that by giving them very good water bonuses. Other than that, they had warriors without a lot of armor, but they were very mobile. They had very sharp swords, like you should at that time, especially if your enemy doesn't have a lot of armor. So that's exactly what the Karambit warrior is. He's like a very weak warrior compared to others units in the game. As you can see, he only has 30 hit points, which is even less than a villager, I believe. Even less than a villager. Of course, he has a higher attack, but the flip side is that he is incredibly cheap. I think he's 25 foot, 10 gold, which is, yeah, that's cheaper than a villager almost. And he only takes 0.5, so half a population slot. That means that you can, if you play a 200 population game and you have an economy of 100 villagers, you can still make 200 units. They're gonna be weak, but it's still 200 units.
Yeah, the Malay are a civ that I've really enjoyed playing with because I feel like they have a very cohesive design. It's this sort of quantity over quality approach. They're a very swarm-oriented civilization with all sorts of unit discounts, and they really just try to overwhelm you with superior numbers, and they're a civ that I've really enjoyed playing with. And we've never actually had a unit in Age of Empires 2 so far that has taken any more or any less than just one population slot, so it's interesting to see that type of design space explored. And one of the things that I feel like makes Rise of the Rajas so unique as an expansion is that, well, there isn't that much design space left in the game, which forces the developers to be very creative, and as a result, I feel like we have some very unique civs here.
It's indeed true. It's like really, like, it's exactly what you say there. One very good example is when we started to first draft the civs, we have to think, okay, how can we give them an economical bonus? That's always the first thing that you look at. But then you look at the economical bonuses that are already in the game and you think, oh, faster hunting, that's taken, faster berries is taken, faster farming, faster wood cutting, gold mining, stone mining, it's all taken. What do you have left? And then you have to kind of think outside the box. And for example, the Malay are a very good example here. Their age up is twice as fast, which is in a way an indirect economical bonus, because it kind of means if you play your cards right that you can age up much faster and save up roughly 3 villagers by the time you go to the Castle Age, and those 3 villagers you can put on whatever you want. So it's kind of like pick your own bonus with the Malai almost.
Well, here we can see the Burmese unique unit, which is the Arambai throwing a bunch of darts. Very high damage unique unit, but very poor accuracy. Matching up actually against the Vietnamese Rattan Archer, which is a very bulky archer. Kind of compare it to a ranged sort of Huskarl type unit, very resistant to ranged attacks, but very weak to melee. All the unique units in Civ just feel really fun to play with, and we also see one of the things about the Malay is that they have these harbor buildings. So you can actually, this is unique just to the Malay, another unique building, and they can research thalassocracy in the Castle Age for a cheap cost to upgrade their docks into harbors which can fight back. And here we see Cheese on Toast liberally applying his harbors all along the coastline, which is always
Indeed,
quite cool to
it's
see.
like he has mini castles around this little island. It's quite a good defensive tactic, I have to say, and really useful to protect your little fishing economy with infinite fish traps going on.
Indeed, it makes for some very fun gameplay. Of course, though, it goes without saying that the harbor is nowhere near as strong as the castle, guys. For those of you who are curious, this building does indeed disintegrate to most siege weapons and whatnot. It is missing all that hidden building armor, all the juicy stuff that makes castles ridiculously strong. It is cheap to create, though, and it's much better against ships than land units. Now, speaking of ships and land units, so we have a bunch of new maps here, and this time they're extremely creative. In the African Kingdoms, we saw the Forgotten Empires team experiment with some crazy new terrain types with things like quicksand and the cracked sand. But this time we have this new terrain, Mangrove Shallows, that's featured on all of the new maps. What can you tell us about Mangrove Shallows?
I think it's going to be my favorite terrain of all the DLCs because it's a terrain where you can build on, you can walk on, and your boats can navigate through it. So it's a terrain for everything and everyone. And that really opens a lot of new tactics. Like historically, there has once been a battle. I think it was in the Netherlands or in France, I'm not sure. And there were ships that were frozen in a lake. So cavalry was actually charging boats. That actually happened in history. And now we can finally properly see it all over Age of Empires. And not just with boats. You can have boats attacking buildings, units attacking boats, and well, the whole triangle is complete pretty much. And one thing I'm also very much hoping for from the modding community, actually, from the map scripters that might be watching here. What I really wanted to do with this new terrain was update all the old maps, and put something with mangrove shallows in them, like Arabia with in the middle a little puddle, a highland arena with a lake in the middle. I think that would be brilliant. But of course we couldn't just do that and change all the old maps. So I'm really hoping to see that showing up in the Steam Workshop.
Oh yeah, that would be really cool. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how modders and scripters will take advantage of all the new assets that we've given them. Personally, I do really enjoy playing with the Mangrove Shallows terrain. It's just amazing how much of a difference it makes that you can actually build buildings on it, and this is something I assume that players will probably be confused about initially, but if there are tree branches on the water surface, that means it's buildable, and if there are no tree branches on it, that means it's not buildable. Really, it just opens up a lot of possibilities for land units to fight against boats, which is something we don't normally see that often unless you're watching Tato's stream. Demolition ships, for example, can be a very fun way to take out your opponent's army, kind of like a gigantic petard, and it's really interesting that, you know, you get to do things like use pikemen to actually take down boats, because pikemen do have a small attack bonus versus them. The new maps are all extremely creative. I think one of my personal favorite special maps is going to be Yin Yang, is one I like a lot.
Oh yeah, we have special maps as well. Those are great fun. I think they're the most fun if you're looking for a not so serious game. Like you have a bunch of friends and you're like, okay, come on, let's go. Then they're ideal, I believe.
Now, one quick thing I wanted to touch on a little bit is that the Khmer, so they're a siege and elephant civilization. They specialize in that kind of late game, you know, death ball style gameplay that we love so much from the Koreans. and they got big, bulky elephants, siege weapons, very strong scorpions. And the Vietnamese, they're an archer civilization. They're also one of those bulky late game slow push civs, which is cool to see the Vietnamese versus the Khmer matching up like this. The Vietnamese bonus is that, well, one of their bonuses is that their archer range units gain additional HP, and that bonus improves over the course of the game. We see my villager fighting this Komodo dragon right now. Everyone really outdid themselves with the new art assets. So, like, this cavalry archer actually has 59 HP instead of 50, and that would be further improved with the addition of bloodlines. The Burmese are a very well-rounded civilization with a lot of monk and infantry bonuses. This is the Irambai unique unit here. To answer one of the questions in the chat, one of the Burmese unique technologies, mana per cavalry, actually does, so it gives +6 bonus attack damage for all their cavalry units versus buildings. That does actually apply to the Hussar and the Irambai, which creates some very fun, unique gameplay. So yes, we will be seeing a little bit of that later. And I guess I touched upon this a little bit earlier on, but what are some of the things that you think make Rise of the Rajas unique as an expansion?
I think just from a purely design point of view, and maybe, yeah, I'm not sure how to say it, but for example, if you look at all the games that are released, you see always the theme themes reoccurring. Like, how many games are there about World War II? How many games are there about dragons and elves in the Middle Ages, or Viking settings, things like that? There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong; they are awesome themes, awesome settings.
AoE4 confirmed. It's going to be World War II Viking themed.
Okay, we have to think about that. but this is a game in Southeast Asia. How many games are there that touch on Southeast Asia? And that I really, really like. That we had the opportunity to do that. To jump into that theme that is barely seen in other games. Of course, the Civ series, they are also all over the world, so that's a game where you see it. But just from the top of my head, I can't think of any others.
Now, another thing that I wanted to ask about, of course, is we're looking at this and we're seeing how interesting and unique these civilizations are, as this battering ram is getting absolutely destroyed by these war galleys and harbors, something I never thought I would say. Players defending themselves with demolition ships. See a little bit of a battle going on the top side. Two incredibly bulky civilizations fighting each other. Mars is the Vietnamese, so he does have access to the Imperial Skirmisher upgrade, which obviously you get in the Imperial Age. It'd be weird if you had Imperial Skirms in the Dark Age, which is an upgrade to the Elite Skirmisher to kind of put it on par with the Halberdier and the Hussar unit, so we'll see a little bit of that in action here. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is that we look at how fun this is. Most people will be asking, Bert, do you have plans for more civilizations beyond this?
I briefly touched upon it in the beginning of the stream. I learned to not say no anymore. I did it 2 times before. After Forgotten was released, I was like, yeah, this is it. There's no more room in this game. And then we made the African Kingdoms, and then after African Kingdoms, I said the same, and now we're here again. So I'm gonna stop saying it and just see what the future brings. I believe there is room, but it is very limited. I mean, we're kind of running around the globe. Our approach is kind of regional at this point. Like, we like to touch on big regions. It's very hard to go back and say, oh, let's make another African Civ and let's make another Southeast Asian Civ. There's probably room for those, but it kind of feels hard to justify that at this point. Like, can you make a whole new scene for that? That's also what makes an expansion in a civilization stand out.
Yeah, it's a never say never type thing, but you know, they'll wait and see. If there is the design space for it, then who knows. Now, speaking of design space, we have this really cool, elaborate-looking unit, the Battle Elephant that we see on the screen now, finally getting some play. A lot of people make the comparison with the Battle Elephant to the Persian War Elephant, and rest assured, my friends, the Persian War Elephant is not necessarily made obsolete by this unit. The Battle Elephant is available to all 4 of the new civilizations, and it is a cheaper version of the War Elephant with significantly weaker combat stats, a lot less health, but it's cheaper and it's faster. which does sort of carve out a different niche for it. We don't really see battle elephants being used that much in the early game, and same thing with war elephants, but in the late game they can both be a big force to be reckoned with. Particularly the battle elephant actually has more potential to be used early on because of the melee discount and the fact that it happens to be faster. But to give the Persians a little bit of help, we actually made their Castle Age War Elephant do a little bit of trample damage, just like the Imperial Age one does, to kind of put it on par.
Yes, indeed. The battle elephant is kind of holding the middle between a war elephant and a knight in a way. This was kind of a historical decision as well. Like in the Southeast Asia, heavy cavalry was not really used, but battle elephants were actually the big part of the armies that they deployed. So we had to give them something heavy, and there was just perfect room to include this unit for the new civilizations.
And it's a lot of fun, because I think that most of us have always wanted to live this dream where you have just a near immortal, unkillable army of giant elephant units. And that's a fantasy that we've got to explore a little bit with the Indian civilization. There are a few things more satisfying than a death ball of Indian elephant archers. And now here we have a bunch more elephants added to the mix. So if you're a fan of those type of units, then you'll certainly enjoy the Khmer, as they have the ballista elephant. It's essentially a mounted scorpion. Of course, it does carry a bunch of weaknesses associated with it due to its broad unit class. And right now we just see all sorts of battles breaking out across the map. Would you like to talk to us a little bit more about the unique units for the civilizations?
Yeah, sure. The one that you just mentioned, perhaps the ballista elephant. So this was a very, very difficult one to get right, because if you look at the scorpion, the big weakness of the scorpion is that it is very, very fickle. You can run up to it, you can tear it down with like a few slashes, and it's done for. But if you mount that on an elephant, yeah, then that kind of completely erases the one weakness of the scorpion. So we have to, be a bit creative here. First of all, you can convert it without redemption, so it's much more vulnerable to monks. It doesn't have that crazy HP. I mean, 300. That's no, I'm not sure exactly from the top of my head how many it has, but like 200 something. Which is quite bulky, but for an elephant, it's not that crazy.
I'm going to try and do it off memory. Is it 250 and 290?
That might very well be. I'd have to check. It's a stat we changed so much during development, so I would have to check my cheat sheet. But yeah, they have a lot of weaknesses. They as they are cavalry and siege, they get bonus damage from both those units.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have halberdiers nearing the ballista elephants, they deal a lot of bonus damage. I think like something like 50 or something, ridiculously high.
Oh yeah, they absolutely disintegrate against things like onagers, halberdiers, camels, etc. And it's just a really fun unit to play with. It has a particularly poor attack stat on its own, but since it fires a piercing bolt, this type of unit is really good when massed up. And that's what I like about it. I think it's one that we've balanced a lot, of course. When I showcased it in the tech tree, the displayed HP there was indeed incorrect. The HP value is actually different between the regular one and the Imperial Age one. Slooming Blah apparently says that Burmese Hussars do not have that attack bonus versus buildings with mana per cavalry. Of course, we will be monitoring and checking all of these things to make sure that all of the bugs are ironed out and fixed, so... if you guys see anything like that, feel free to leave a post on the Steam forums. We'll give it a look, and we'll see exactly if all the bonuses are working correctly. Now, what about some of the other unique units?
Well, a very interesting one as well is the Vietnamese. So they kind of have two unique additions. They have the unique unit, the Rattan Archer, and then the unique upgrade, the Imperial Skirmishers. So the Rattan Archer is a kind of Huscarl Archer. And a lot of people are already asked, like, what's the difference exactly between the Rattan Archer and the Elite Skirmisher? Like, don't they just overlap? But the big difference is that the Imperial Skirmisher is a counter unit, and the Rattan Archer is a very, very general unit. So this Elite Skirmisher will only be good against archers, while the Rattan archer can also easily beat infantry, and with a bit of micro, also light cavalry, just like any other archer really. And that's the big difference. And also it doesn't have the minimum range, which is quite a massive difference.
Yeah, the Rattan Archer is quite a significant gold investment, and a very strong counter unit in the right situations. Jose Javiero asked for a monk on an elephant. That is one of the few things that we don't actually have yet, is a monk on an elephant, so it'd be like a super missionary. Some of the other unique units that we have, you talked about the Karambit Warrior a little bit earlier on, and I know the Arambai is one that you really enjoy, so could you tell us a little bit more about the Burmese unique unit as well?
So the Arambai is a bit of a weird unit. Like it's very, very strong. It has a super high attack. Like the fully upgraded elite Arambai has 20 attack. That's ridiculously high. You can't upgrade that. It's just 20 because it's not really an archer. It throws massive darts. That's what it does. And those darts just do a lot of pierce damage. Now, the caveat is that it has such a low accuracy. So if you throw your dart at one unit, I think there's like 20-30% chance that you actually hit the unit. That sounds incredibly weak, but the strength is if you use it against big groups of units. Because if your projectile misses, there is still like a chance that it hits a nearby unit. In which case it still does damage. Not full damage, I think 50% or something. So yeah, long story short, if you use it against groups of units, it's super strong. If you use it against small groups of units, it's probably not that strong.
Yeah, the unit is... It takes a... In order to evaluate it, you have to know quite a bit about Age of Empires 2 mechanics, so I think it's really great that you brought that up there. When a dart actually misses, yeah, like you said, it deals 50% damage if it was going to hit something else. And that makes it really good, not only in close range, but also against massed enemy units. In close range as well, because if you're extremely close to something, then you are more likely to hit it. The Arambai cannot be upgraded with fletching or any of that, but it can be upgraded with the padded archer armor. This is a very fun unit to play with. While it is kind of comparable to the Conquistador, it really does have a different, unique feel to it that you can only really understand after playing with it extensively. We also see our Burmese player massing up a bunch of monks, because his monk technologies cost 50% less, and we see me with a big death ball on the top side of the map. One of the quick things I also wanted to ask you about is... So this expansion, of course, also comes with a wide variety of really cool balance changes that we got to show off in patch 4.8 for AoE 2 HD. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about these balance changes?
Actually, absolutely. The way we introduce new civilizations to the game is that they're always like the new kids on the block, and they always come into the play like, oh, can I play with you guys? Can I play with the Hunts? Can I play with... like, they need to stand out somehow. And it's very, very difficult for the new kids on the block to all of a sudden win against civilizations. Let me try to clarify that a bit. What I mean is that if you're playing with a Khmer, for example, and you're playing against a Hunt player, the Hunt player has had the opportunity to practice the build orders for 15 years, pretty much. How can you even stand a chance with your Khmer build orders? You're still experimenting. You're seeing how everything works. That's not going to go down well. So what we always do when we release a new expansion is make sure that the new civilizations are always a little bit stronger. And that is exactly why we do those balance changes after a while. That's why you also see a lot of balance changes to the African kingdom civs now, just to make sure that now that the strategies and the metagame for those civilizations has been discovered, people have had the chance to play with them and experiment, but now it's time to nerve them back to what a civilization in Age of Empires 2 is supposed to be like. And we're gonna see the same for the Rise of the Rajas as well. They're new civilizations, they're very strong at the moment, but we will probably see nerfs coming for them when it is necessary.
Yes, of course, the A lot of the idea behind balance changes is to just create a more diverse, broad metagame where a wider variety of civilizations are usable, a wider variety of unit types and strategies, and the players always feel like they have options, counterplay for all these situations. At first, we like to make sure that the DLC civs are a little bit on the stronger side, but this is to encourage players to use them, experiment with counters. So we always ask the players, try and keep an open mind, try all sorts of strategies as the new civilizations, and also try strategies against them. You might be surprised that these civs do carry a wide variety of weaknesses with them as well, but we'll be monitoring all the balance, of course, quite closely. See on the top side of the map, I'm having an absolute ball with the Khmer. This is my type of civilization, if only I could remember that building bonus. Now, as we're nearing the end of the game, I think that one of the questions that will be on people's mind while we're seeing some pretty sick demo shots from Cheese on Toast is that, will AoE 2 HD be supported after this expansion's release?
Yes, absolutely. We released exactly 1 hour ago. We are already working on the first batch, so we are ready for any issues that might pop up. We still have a few things that we want to fine-tune a bit, and of course any balance changes will come faster for Rise of the Rajas than they did for the African Kingdoms. So yes, absolutely, support is coming throughout 2017 as well.
Yep, and one of the ways that you guys can help with this is, of course, by, again, posting your feedback on the Steam forums. Please do let us know if you've been enjoying the expansion. Give us your feedback. Tell us what your favorite units are, your favorite civs, favorite campaign mission, etc. And if you discover any sort of weird bugs or behaviors, please let us know. We will forward those to Skybox Labs, and they will get on it quite shortly. So yes, don't worry, guys. Age of Empires 2 will be getting support after this expansion's release. There's not going to be another, significantly long dry period. As we're getting towards the end of this match, and I have asked you most of the main questions, I suppose we can periodically take ones from the chat, and you're welcome, of course, to talk about whatever is on your mind. But I guess one sort of easier question I wanted to ask you that ABC Melanie has been asking about is the paper money technology for the Vietnamese. So what was the design process behind that? Why paper money?
Why paper money? Banknotes, or at least, banknotes in a very ancient form, were used in that region quite early, actually. I think they first appeared in China, I believe, in 100 BC, and then they kind of spread throughout the region. And that's kind of the historical background for giving it to the Vietnamese. And we kind of really just liked the concept of, hey, I pay a little bit of food and wood, and all my allies and myself get a lot of gold in return. It's quite a weird technology, so to speak, because it's not really a technology. You don't really get an upgrade, you just get the resources. But yeah, we quite like that approach.
I think it's a really fun technology to play with. Particularly, it has some limited use, at least in a 1v1. It's not necessarily the most efficient exchange. Look at these demo shots, wow. Because you actually count as an ally to yourself. So if you wanted, you could trade 800 food for basically 300 gold after the fact. God, I love this expansion. Look at these demos.
It is indeed it's just like every other bonus, really. Like you need to have, like every other technology, you need to have the good situation to use it. Otherwise, yeah, you would just research everything, and that's not the point of the game, of course.
Yeah.
The point of the game is that you have to time them correctly to put them to the best use.
It's obviously
and
best
this
used
is
in
a
a team
perfect
game.
example.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the best use of that is absolutely in team games, because if you have 3 teammates and then yourself, you actually hand out 2,000 gold, which is not bad for a price of 800 food and 200 gold yourself.
Now, one quick thing I also wanted to cover, as we are nearing the end of this, is just, we can see here all the various strengths of these civilizations being showcased. Cheese on Toast, our Malay player, is making use of his two-handed swordsmen that do not cost gold because of that forced levy technology. And if you want to see more of these technologies, units, and bonuses in action, we actually had the honor of hosting an expert tournament for the new expansion, and the VODs for that will also be on the various casters' pages later this week. Forced Levy actually got a lot of play, and we're also seeing some champions from Tom, our Burmese player, of course taking advantage of the +1 bonus attack he gets per age. Cheese on Toast even making some Imperial Skirmishers, because that is the Vietnamese team bonus, gives it to everyone on their team. And then Mars actually building some Bard Towers to try and move the line forward with his Halberdiers. He's got some Imperial Skirmishers, and I just have a giant, incredibly expensive army full of battle elephants, ballista elephants, scorpions, you name it. Double crossbow is one of my favorite upgrades in the game, and this expansion has some of the most creative ones I've ever seen. Double crossbow giving the ballista elephant and scorpions the ability to fire 2 projectiles simultaneously. That's a cool upgrade.
The thing with the double crossbow is like it mainly looks extremely daunting. All the smoke and all the trails that are left behind, it looks like, how did you even survive that? Like you shouldn't. But it looks more daunting than the actual strength that comes from it.
It deals reduced
but
damage,
still,
basically.
it's a good tech. Don't get me wrong. It just looks crazy, but that's fine as well.
It's just a really creative technology, and it kind of changes the way, again, you look at the Ballista Elephant and the Heavy Scorpion. It gives a much broader range and some additional damage, but the second projectile, of course, cannot do full damage. We're not that crazy.
The thing that we're obviously going to focus on first is multiplayer. Okay, so what we did with this expansion was really look into the single-player performance.
Yes.
Like everybody knows the ludicrous map size, and that didn't run really smooth on a lot of systems, so we kind of had to jump in there and make it run smooth like a baby's bottom, and that's kind of what we went and did with this expansion. So we really focused on not just single player, because the changes we did had a big effect just on the game in general, and then for 2017 we will probably be looking more into multiplayer improvements as well.
And the upcoming focus, just like Bert said here, will be on multiplayer improvements, which is something I think that a lot of us are really looking forward to. It's great that Ludicrous right now is actually playable as a map size. It's something I look forward to playing around with. And then now, once the multiplayer experience gets polished, then there's a lot of interesting stuff on the horizon. DJ Replica asking a little bit about Siege Towers. We did indeed buff them in patch 4.8. You guys can actually find the full changelog and basically everything you need on the ForgottenEmpires.net official website, where we do have a incredibly comprehensive changelog of all the balance changes that we've made, and we're always looking into those type of things. Aurora Rimbo asks if the spectator problem is fixed yet, and the answer is we are looking into it, and it should be fixed soon. Feel free, by the way, to pick out any questions that you're interested in, Bert, or just tell us a little bit more about the expansion. Like, we're really happy to be here, and it's an absolute honor to just be a part of this, so thank you.
You're welcome. If you have any other questions in the chat, please fire away. I can actually go into a little more detail on how Ludicrous now runs. So we did a lot of tests on a wide variety of computers, and I think on average the frame rate improved, how should I say it? Yeah, between 50 and 700%. That's kind of the range of improvements we saw on frame rate in Ludicrous map size. So I personally went from like 20 frames per second to, I don't know, 300, something like that. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Not bad is an understatement. The improvement that we felt during internal testing was like night and day. I remember when Bert brought in the experimental build for testing, and it was crazy. You couldn't believe that you were playing on the same scenarios and situations that we were before. It's a dramatic improvement. So those are the type of things that I'm always reading Reddit, the AOE2 subreddit, the forums, and everything. We are collecting your feedback, guys, and I'm just really glad that Ludicrous is so much smoother now.
Alright. In the meantime, I think the game is nearly coming to an end.
It is, yeah. We only have about 5 minutes left. So if anyone has any other questions that they want to squeeze in here, very novel asks about castle elephants. We do not have movable buildings yet, but that was, of course, one of the first things that I did when I started playing around with the data files. Is like, I wonder what would happen if I gave castles movement speed. You never know, but I think that would be... I don't know if there's a historical basis for that.
A question, are we gonna have 1,000 population cap? I think that's something to look at in the future, but we're very happy to see the Ludicrous map size now run very smooth. Now having a few thousand units running around on that, I'm not sure if the engine is capable of that yet. So that is definitely something we will look at in the future. Question from Memb. Hello Memb. He's of course a big Age of Empires 2 streamer as well. He has a question: when are we going to have water maps, walls on water maps, so I can play other maps than Black Forest? This is never gonna come. This is never gonna come. The closest we will get to that is the amphibious terrain that we introduced here with Razadaraches. The mangrove shallows, that's the closest we will get to that, but we will not make specific water walls because we feel they're a little bit strange, to say the least.
So for most things, the answer is never say never, but with that, probably never.
I thought about it, I really thought about it, but I was like, walls and towers don't usually make the game much more interesting, and as well, boats are quite limited to begin with. Like, they just go on the water, and water is a key part of the game, of course, but it's not where your town center is. Well, unless you're playing Block Islands, but or Water Nomads. So we want to keep that for the new terrains.
Oh, Cysion, by the way, I know that we were planning on keeping this for a little bit of a surprise, but it looks like the cat's out of the bag. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we did to the Indians in this expansion?
Oh, yes, a little surprise for everybody. If you have the Forgotten Empires and you have the Indians, you will see that they have a brand new architecture set. Some of you might know the Indian architecture mod. It's not that architecture set. We actually worked together with the creator of that mod, and we gave him all the tools that we are using, all the setups, and of course he got to work with the whole team to bring his architecture set up to the next level. So we totally upgraded it, and now it's part of the official game. So if you want to play the Indians again to see some more elephants, you will get some extra nice buildings on top of that.
And of course, it goes without saying, by the way, guys, that the Forgotten Empires team, we do the design work and whatnot for the game, and then Skybox Labs does all of the engineering. So when it comes to various things such as Linux or Mac support, that's not something that we can develop ourselves, but that's up to Skybox and Microsoft. So we'll have to see about that.
I can answer for that because we see that question coming up at pretty much every stream. Linux and Mac support are not coming for the Age of Empires title.
Yeah, and there you have it. Sorry, G-Stone 7. Unfortunately, I assume that it would take a large amount of resources to produce that type of thing. Let's see. Any other questions from the chat? We are getting close to the end of this. The replay does indeed end before we blow up all of their bases, but we see here that even though my army is very strong, it is certainly not unkillable and expensive beyond your wildest imagination. If I lose a group of these elephants, then that's going to put me in debt for years. They don't even let you play Age of Empires after that until you've generated enough money in real life.
I found that, well, for the people who haven't seen the tournament yet, there was I'm not going to give any spoilers, but Dowd at one point made a big army of ballista elephants. But of course, it was a 1v1 tournament, so it's very tricky to keep them alive. And if you can't keep them alive, you lose a lot of resources, and then you're beaten back quite hard. And I think that was the problem for him in that game. He eventually ran out of resources when he lost all his ballista elephants.
You certainly have to be very careful with the expensive army. I just really like that the Age of Empires 2 franchise is just getting the level of support that I think it deserves. And as I see, the HD remakes for our various favorite games, it gives me hope for the future, that the RTS genre is something that is not being abandoned, and something that major companies like Microsoft do remember. We really, really care about it, and I think that this, when I see a new DLC announced, it signals a bright future for me. The development for Age of Empires 2 is going to continue, and I think it opens the gate for, who knows what the future holds, basically.
Yes, totally. Some other good question there. Do we consider adding the battle elephants for the Indians and the Persians?
Yes.
Very, very popular question. No. Sorry to disappoint you, but the answer is no. The reason there is that we really wanted to flesh them out a bit more, like the Eagle Warriors are fleshed out for the Mesoamerican civs. And that's why we are not adding them to the Persians and the Indians, to really keep it in Southeast Asia, something unique for them.
Yeah, there's a question that I actually forgot to ask earlier, but one that is very commonly asked. And it looks like, yes, we are indeed about to hit the end of the game right now. Of course, this was an excellent game, and I just wanted to take a moment to not only thank the entire Forgotten Empires staff for making all this possible, and then Skybox for all of their hard work in the expansion, for Microsoft for organizing and approving everything. And also to thank the individual players in this game for taking the time out of their busy day. So we have Tom, the Very Fish, we have Charlie for Cheese on Toast, and we have Kenneth Mars. Thank you so much, guys, for playing this game. It was a wonderful game, so GG, well played. Managed to take him down in the end, just barely, but it was a close one.
Yep, indeed. A few more questions, and I think then we can let people go and let them play the game rather than listening to me and to you. So a few more questions that I saw. Do the Turks get the Imperial skirmisher when they team up with the Vietnamese? No, they don't. It's a bit of a shame there. But they don't get the Imperial skirmisher because they're missing the elite skirmisher upgrade as well. So they don't make the jump there. It's something similar that we see elsewhere in the game. For example, all the American civs, the Incas, the Mayans, and the Aztecs, they miss out on all the cavalry bonuses. So the Persian, the Frankish, the Mongol, I think I'm missing one. All those team bonuses, the Huns, sorry, all those team bonuses don't apply to the American civs either. So here we have a team bonus that doesn't apply to the Turks.
It's okay, guys. At least they get geniteurs, and they get very, very strong elite geniteurs if you're teaming up with the Berbers.
Exactly. So Vietnamese and Turks might not be the best combination, but Berbers and Turks, absolutely. Oh, another good question. Samurai don't get a bonus versus Imperial skirmishers. Another good question that I saw there, how is the LAN mode in Age of Empires 2 HD? So that's a bit of a common misconception almost. So LAN mode is there, it's just a bit hidden, and it works a little bit different than in the original game. We have the multiplayer lobby, you have to join that, but in order to join that you need to be connected to the internet. So then you set up your game, you have people on the LAN join the game, and after you launch the game, the connection goes local, and you can play with 1 ping or 2 ping, something like that. So LAN mode is there, but you need the initial connection to set up your game. So that's a caveat.
I would say that Kigo, the Karambit Warrior, is the type of thing that isn't It's not a straightforward unit to use, and we saw it used a lot in the tournament, and I definitely encourage you guys to check out the VODs when those are posted, as some of them were just absolutely epic, and we really got to see all aspects of the melee really utilized. The Karambit Warrior doesn't really counter anything one-on-one, of course, due to its exceptionally poor combat stats, but the fact that it just creates so quickly, it costs almost nothing, makes it a really good swarming unit. So in mass, it can be quite nice, and then if you consider it in one-on-one combat, I guess you could compare it to like a weaker infantry unit, so, of course it'll match up nicely against units with, poor Dura armor.
Yeah, they're absolutely a very, very different unit. Usually, if a unique unit is usually like a strong version of an existing unit, but the Karambit is absolutely not that. They're absolute swarmers. They just swarm the map, but they are mostly a support unit, so they'll need some backup, or at least they provide some backup. It depends how you look at it.
EC100, if you experience any weird issues, again, post those on the Steam forums, and we will make sure that they do indeed get looked at. This year we did a significant reorganization of just all the way that stuff is set up, so it should be much easier for all the bug reports to get to all the right places that they need to. So, and no, I think G-Stone, that Cysion answered this earlier. There are not currently plans for Mac and Linux support.
Indeed. Oh, one other novelty with the expansion, we didn't really discuss it yet, but for modders, data modding is now available.
Ooh.
So if you want to play around with that, it's there. It's there. It released an hour ago, so you can have a hand with that if you want to see it, try balance changes for yourself, or add new units, make like super special custom scenarios with modded data in it. Now you can do it.
Oh, that's something that we can look into, Ek. Alright, well, I think, though, that, of course, the logical thing to do at this point is to, get ready to let you guys go out there and experience the new expansion in all of its glory, as it has been out now for over an hour. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about, Cysion, while we have the honor of you being here?
I think that's going to be... We've been talking for, I think, a little over an hour now, so
Yes.
I think it's fine to let the people go and have them play Rise of the Rajas. I want to say a few more things. I want to, of course, thank everybody who has been involved in this. Microsoft for once more believing in us that we could make yet another expansion for Age of Empires 2. It's a great honor. I grew up with this game as a kid, so it's quite nice to work on it right now. It's quite a dream come true. I want to thank all the people from Forgotten Empires, of course, the art team, Vitalis for the sounds, Tom for the new maps, Promi for the updated AI, the campaign team, of course, for making, I have to say, very, very fun campaign missions. We didn't showcase them here on the stream, but if you like campaigns, if you like the ones in the African Kingdoms, you will definitely like the ones in the Rise of the Rajas as well. There are some very, very challenging missions in there. I hope I didn't forget anyone. The QA team, of course. The QA team, thanks for testing everything and making sure that we didn't make any silly mistakes in the game. Also, Shep, for doing all the business and paperwork. It's much appreciated. It's not not my strong point. Did I forget anyone? Of course, Skybox for once again supporting us with engineering and supporting the whole series with engineering pretty much. It's very much appreciated. Is that everybody? I hope that's everybody. Otherwise, I'm going to look like a right prick.
Oh, did we get Promi in there?
I definitely had Promi in there.
Okay,
the translators.
Yes, there we go. I was going through the list.
There we go. And I think that should be everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for helping out. And now, go ahead and enjoy the game.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Cysion, and for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. It truly is a dream come true. Age of Empires 2, like with you, is a game that I really grew up with, and to this day, it's still my favorite game, which I think speaks volume of just how good it actually is. And, when I look at opportunities like these new DLCs, it makes me very hopeful for the future. I hope that you guys enjoyed the stream. Check out Rise the Rajas on Steam. It is indeed live now. We're really looking forward to hearing all of your guys' feedback. Please do let us know if you've been enjoying it. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the battlefield. Thank you so much for watching.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.